Sado, the Japanese tea ceremony. But what is this tea ceremony and how do you even have to behave in a tea ceremony when you visit one, maybe inside or outside Japan? So in this video I want to talk in general about what the Japanese tea ceremony is, the background of that ceremony and the, let's say, general philosophy behind it. And I don't want to spoiler you too much about the tea ceremony because I want you to experience it for yourself. So this video will just be about some guidelines, what this actually is, and you should stay until the end of the video because there I will tell you how much a tea ceremony approximately will cost and some places I think you should visit when you go to Japan to really experience the tea ceremony. Hey, I'm Hirameki Insight, and on this channel I give you the knowledge to experience, interact and connect with Japan and Japanese people inside and outside of Japan. So if you want to learn more about Japan, don't forget to subscribe this channel. But now we don't just want to learn about Japan, this time we want to learn about the Japanese tea ceremony, right? So let's get right into what actually is this tea ceremony called Sado. So, like I told you in the beginning, the Japanese tea ceremony is called Sado in Japanese. And basically it consists of two kanji that form the vocabulary Sado. And the first one means tea and the second one means way or path. So if you would translate it into the English language, it sounds kind of like the path or the way of tea. So this already sounds kind of cool. But anyway, the Japanese tea ceremony originated around the 9th century and it has a strong connection to Buddhism because it was, at least historically, introduced by Buddhist monks. And at that time, usually you would just have a tea ceremony with a green tea. Because at the tea ceremony in Japan in general, you drink more green tea than, for example, if you compare it to England, where more people drink black tea, right? But a tea ceremony is not just about tea itself, but usually about green tea. And with time, the kind of tea ceremony changed and it became known that you use matcha. And just so you know, in general, matcha is also green tea, but it is a powdered green tea. I think I will include some picture here because it will be important later for the procedure of the tea ceremony. And basically the word matcha consists of two vocabulary again too, and one of them is tea, of course, and the other one is to rub or erase. So if you went to Japan, or maybe if you looked inside an Asian supermarket at your country, you maybe already saw that green powder that when you mix it with water, it will turn into some tea that you can drink. And that is basically the tea that is used at the tea ceremony. But now I explained you about the tea part and kind of the origin part, but there's also something else because it's a ceremony, right? So what is even the origin of the ceremony, or why do you even do it? And basically there are four principles that are important for this, and those principles you can also find in Buddhism. So for example, in my free time I like to meditate with like a meditation group with a Japanese monk, and those principles are also applicable to this tea ceremony. So let me introduce you to them. So basically the general philosophy behind it, and I think it depends on where you will have that experience, it will kind of differ, but if you want to generalize that experience, basically it consists of four parts, and those four principles are basically harmony, respect, tranquility, and purity. And basically in general, harmony is something really important in Japan because you always want to try to keep some harmony in the air, or if you interact with people, you want to have some, let's say, good atmosphere. And basically, if you join that tea ceremony, or if you already joined a tea ceremony, you can feel that it can have a pretty calming effect to you. I will come back to that later when I explain you my experience with a tea ceremony. And the next one is respect. So you have some kind of distance to the person that will prepare the tea for you, and you will kind of take the things not for granted, but more like politely. I can say it in this way. And purity, for example, is because I heard that in some tea ceremonies, you also have to purify yourself before you drink the tea. So this, for example, is not a Buddhist origin, it is actually a Shintoistic origin. So if you ever visited a shrine in Japan, for example, you see those kind of water baskins or those water places where you kind of wash your hands and rinse your mouth. And basically, this kind of procedure you have at a shrine in Japan, you also have it sometimes at tea ceremonies, but just sometimes. And the last one is tranquility, because at the end, a tea ceremony itself is there to be experienced. And there's a really nice thing about the tea ceremony. In the beginning, I told you it is about the way of the tea or the path of the tea. Everything sounds a bit complicated, so let me break it down for you a bit more. Basically, you want to experience the things as they are. And that is by experiencing not the tea at the end, so the product of the making, but you want to experience the path until you drink the tea. So you have some kind of procedures that happen until you drink the tea that prepare you for drinking the tea. But actually, the ceremony itself is not just about drinking the tea and tasting the tea, because that is the goal. It is about the path you have there. And I think that's a pretty nice philosophy, right? Because I think in life it's kind of similar, no? It's not, in my case, about the video at the end that I show you. Of course, that's something cool. But it's also about making this video, about writing the script for the video, about filming it right now, and about editing it later. And I think you can see that philosophy in many places or many things in your life. But now that it got that much philosophical and complicated, let's get back to the actual tea ceremony. How does it look like? And like I told you before, a tea ceremony is always a bit different depending on where you go, but I will just share my experience. So, as many of you know that already followed me, I study Japanese at the university. And one day a Japanese teacher came to me and they said, "Yeah, we have another teacher that wants to do a tea ceremony. Do you want to be part of this?" And I was like, "Okay." And yeah, of course. And then she said that this teacher already practiced kind of the tea ceremony inside their home country. And basically, because at the university we don't have a nice big Japanese house, we just had some tatami mats in a room. And basically, if you don't know what tatami is, they're those mats in Japanese living rooms made of like rice, not rice exactly, but the plant behind the rice. You know what I mean? And basically, you sit down there, and then she made that ceremony. And usually, when you enter the room, you like enter with a slightly like bowing. And when you enter the room, you can see the person. Usually, it's just one person that is preparing the tea utensils. So, the things she needs for making the tea. And there, for example, like hot water or a bowl where she or he, in this case, usually it's a woman, she will make the tea. And usually you go inside and I don't know, you go inside and you just sit on the mat. And in my case, we sat in this like typical Japanese position, if you know what I mean, where like your legs hurt after some time. And we just sat in the row and waited for her to create that tea. And that is actually something really interesting because before you go on that mat, you also take off your shoes. That is something really important that you also should consider when you visit a Japanese home, for example. And some restaurants also require you to do it, by the way. So that is maybe some kind of where you can see that kind of purity aspect. And then the kind of tranquility one was I thought we enter there and then we drink the tea directly, but we sat there and just waited. And usually, of course, it really depends on the ceremony. Some people talk in that ceremony too, but the actual original way is not to talk. And you sit, and you sit and you wait. And the person will first do the matcha inside a bowl and then prepare everything. I will not talk too much about this because I want you to experience it for yourself. But one thing I want to kind of highlight is that you sit there and usually in that position, your legs will start to hurt. And that is actually something that is like a Buddhist philosophy, and you can see me smiling because I experience this every Friday for 2 hours at my meditation circle. Because there, at Buddhism, for example, the first thing that you do is sit down, and usually it's not about sitting down comfortably. You will sit down and kind of have some pain coming up in your legs that you just need to accept in some way. And it sounds a bit contradictory, but by just saying, okay, it is how it is like this, and I will just accept it, you can enter some state of being more calm. And I can see that kind of at the tea ceremony too. But in general, because some people are older and maybe some people will have their legs hurt really fast, and I don't know, if it hurts too much, then you shouldn't overdo it, of course. Um, at some tea ceremonies, it's also okay to just sit down. But that is the origin of it, right? And that is also some kind of Buddhist thing, because you just sit down and you just experience everything how it is. And you listen to the sounds inside the room. You listen to the sounds of the person making the tea, and you just try to first like get into this moment. And that is the same thing that I think is expressed with sado, the way of the tea, because you focus on the way. You don't think about, okay, when will the tea come? How will the tea taste? How good will it be? Will it be not good? Will it be hot? You don't think about it. You just wait and just experience it as itself. And I think that's some really important thing to just get inside this environment, like a tip to experience. But anyway, then the person will be done with the tea and bring it to you on a plate. And if I remember it correctly, you will get like a bowl with the tea inside and the small wagashi. And basically, wagashi is just a sweet. If you translate it, there's a word in Japanese for sweets. It's called okashi. So o, the polite one, and kashi, like the sweet. And wa is just like a Japanese style. So when you say something like wafu, it's like Japanese style. And if you put it in front of the sweet, it's a Japanese sweet. So sweet plus Japanese, like way, it's wagashi. And usually you will get the glass and just like turn it around a few times. Let me give you an example. So let me say this teacup is my teacup at the ceremony. I think when you visit the ceremony, they will explain it to you too. But in general, you get that cup and you just turn it around a bit and just look at it to like, I don't know, experience it. And then you just usually in Japan, you put one hand below the cup and one hand on the side, and then you just drink it like this. And after this, you sometimes wipe away the place where you drink something. That's also the purity aspect that comes. And then after you drink it, you just put it down again. And also I think you put it from the right to the left. If I remember it correctly, there's a direction you should, I don't know, do. I think the person will explain it to you too. And then you will look at the cup again one last time and just put it down. And that is like the basic principle. And you usually do that while sitting down and you're like, oh my God, my legs hurt so much. But I mean, it's part of the tea ceremony, right? And then you usually get some sweets and they're really tasty too. Like it depends on the season, which kind of sweets you get. For example, at the time where I had that ceremony, I got some like sweet little cake with yuzu. It's like lemon. And sometimes I also experience you can get some like sakura mochi. So mochi is like the rice that is kind of beaten, and with the sakura uh, taste inside. And outside was like a salty leaf or something. So I don't know. It's really cool because you get different things. Yeah, and then basically that's about the tea ceremony. Then you will see the person like giving the tea to everyone, and then you will have the ceremony, and then that's basically about it. So if you really want to say it simply, it's just drinking tea in a more fancy way. But like I said in the beginning, I think the cool thing about the tea ceremony, and I mean it depends on the person, but I think the cool thing is that you can really just rest a bit. So I don't know if you know it from your everyday life, but there are many things you need to do. There are many things you need to think about. There are many goals you have to achieve. Some people you're responsible for example. And sometimes I think it's just a good thing to just sit down. And I think drinking the tea in this case is not just about drinking the tea, but taking some time to not be in the future with your thoughts, what should I eat, what should I do, where should I go, or be in the past with your thoughts, for example, like, that time was so embarrassing, or what else. You just try to be in the present moment. And usually I also try to input some picture if I find something in the internet. Usually the room where you drink the tea has also a really calming experience. So sometimes they will have some plant there, or maybe some like traditional Japanese design, and really take that opportunity to just sit down for a moment and just look at every small detail in this room. Like maybe the wood that has some carving, or maybe the tatami that isn't perfect, and just try to be in this moment. And of course, you can also, I think, sometimes talk with the person and ask them things about the tea ceremony, and they will also explain you things. But I think it's also good to kind of relax a bit. So that is my kind of tip when you go to a tea ceremony. And now we come to the costs of a tea ceremony. And I think there are three kind of stages you can have. I researched a bit in the internet too. You can go to a tea house in general. Of course, there you will not have the tea ceremony, but there you can experience the tea that will be used in such a ceremony. And there you will not pay more than 10 euros, I think, around about 5 to 10 euros, or I think $5 to $10. Let's do it in dollars because it's an English speaking channel. Um, and the next level would be that you get a tea, but with some sweets, so like a tea set. So I told you, usually next to the tea, you will have some sweets, like the wagashi. And I think for this, you will pay more, maybe around about $15. It really depends on the location. I think if you go to Kyoto, for example, to a really, really famous place, then you will pay much more than when you go to some where else. And also maybe one thing to keep in mind, usually matcha is used at the tea ceremony, and I regularly drink matcha too. And the most known place for tea in Japan is Kyoto. And like half an hour from Kyoto, there's a place called Uji, and they are really famous for their matcha, for example. So I don't know, if you're really into tea and you want to get really, really good tea, then maybe you should um, pick your location based on the tea you will want to kind of drink, because I think the ceremony itself will not differ that much from the location. And when you want to have the actual ceremony, I saw there are some packages. I will explain it to you later when I give you free locations. But in general, you pay between 40 to $60, or let's say around about $50 for joining the tea ceremony. And it depends. For example, you can go with your family too. Then you will have like a package price of maybe 100 euro. And usually it will last about 90 minutes. So of course it is some costly thing. If you just want to enjoy the tea, you can just go to a tea house. But I think also just experiencing this one time can be really cool. And like I told you, it's the philosophy behind it is really cool also. Like to really stay in that moment and just let go everything for a moment. Just relax your muscles, relax your body, just sit there and, like, I don't know, go with the flow. So now that we talked about the cost of a tea ceremony, I want to showcase you 3 places that I researched in the internet and that you can take as an example. So before I explain you the individual places, I looked for one place in Tokyo, one in Kanazawa, it's close to Tokyo, and one in Kyoto. My light just died. I hope it's okay. And one place in Kyoto. So, because I told you Kyoto is pretty known for this, but it can be pretty crowded too. And those places also offer English support. So if you don't know Japanese, they can also speak to you in English. Because I think even for someone learning Japanese, it can be kind of complicated to have that special vocabulary. So let's get started. So the first place is Maikoya, and yeah, it just means like the hut or the place. And they, for example, I have like 10% off code right now. It's not sponsored, by the way. I just see it on the website right now. But anyway, what makes this place special, I think, is it's at Asakusa. So it's, I think, a pretty famous spot for tourists in um, Japan. And at Asakusa, there you can also try the kimono. So when you join the ceremony, they also have a kimono package, so you can wear the traditional Japanese clothing and then experience the ceremony. Just two things, it's about 90 minutes. And if you have children under 7 years, then um, they cannot enter, for example. I think they have some family packages too. So if you want to go with your family, you can go as a whole. If not, I think you will share the, or not, I think it's written there, you will share the room with some other participants. And usually you also need to wait until they get dressed and so on. But I think this is a pretty nice place as it seemed from the site. And it's round about like $40. So I think that should be okay. It really depends on which package you take. But this would be the one in Tokyo. And the next one is in Kanazawa. It's a bit more far from Tokyo, but this is the oldest tea house in Kanazawa actually. And I think this place, just in my personal opinion, looked a bit better to me than the one in Tokyo. First, because it's not as crowded, and secondly, because I think you're more on your own in some ways. So you can get the like tea with the sweets. This will cost you about 1,700 yen. That's about $10. I think that's a pretty reasonable price. And there's also written that you have two sets of tea and sweets. So if you book the actual ceremony, it will cost about 4,000 yen. That's about like $30 or 30 euros. I think that's a pretty good price too. And there, the person will first make the tea for you, like show you the procedure, and then you drink it and eat the sweet. So, and after this, they will do it again, but this time you can try it yourself. And I think at the ceremony in Tokyo, it's were not written that you can do it yourself. So I think this one in Kanazawa looks good too. And if you maybe want some more private space, you can book the whole place for like, or the whole small place for 8,000 yen. So that's about 60 euros, maybe 60, 50 euros, dollars. So yeah, that is the other option you have. And also it's written that you should reserve pretty fast. So in general, in Japan, I would recommend to you that you reserve things in advance. Usually every restaurant or site, they will have some website, um, just so they can prepare for this. And yeah, for example, if you just want to try the tea and the sweet, you can just go there by itself. But if you really want to have the ceremony, then you should reserve. Okay, so the next one is the one at Kyoto. And like I told you, Kyoto is the more traditional place. There are more tourists. So this one will be more expensive. So like I said, my favorite is the one in Kanazawa. But maybe if you're around Kyoto, you can try this one. So basically, if you have a shared tea ceremony, it will be about 4,000 yen. And if you want a kimono, additional 6,000 yen. So in total, 10,000. If you compare it to the one in Tokyo, it's much more expensive, but that's also because it's Kyoto and it's more traditional, and maybe it will be more accurate than the one in Tokyo. I don't know. And if you want to have a private room, for example, then if you just want to have it for yourself, you need to pay around 100 euro, 50,000 yen. If you want to have it shared with other persons, you pay 8,000. Um, you can also book the garden there, and here, for example, also children from 4+ years can enter the ceremony. Um, yeah, I think I will not pay my child the ceremony in any way time soon, but I think in general, if you want to go there, I would advise you to just keep your child at home and just go. It will keep the cost a bit more low, and then just show some pictures. No, but anyway, that is the one in Kyoto. I will of course put the links down in the description too. And those are basically the places that I would recommend you to go. Just a small advice. I didn't go there. I just researched in the internet. If you want to research more clearly, you can just type in the internet Japanese tea ceremony. Also, because some will have some advice in English, or they will have some guidance in English, it will be more expensive, of course, because the person have to speak a different language. But yeah, I think in general, if you have the money and the time to experience this, you can just go to that place and experience it. And like I said, it's not just about the tea. I think it's some really nice thing to just sit down and just experience this and just be in the moment. I mean, of course, because I'm also kind of influenced by Buddhist philosophy and because I regularly or daily meditate, um, of course, I'm like, uh, I kind of like this tea ceremony. But yeah, and in general, I think you can also try at home, for example, just make a tea and just try to focus on how you make the tea. I don't know, you see it in the internet maybe with some channels if they make some coffee or something, that they really put down detail to every small step. You can maybe try to do the tea ceremony at your home and then just write down in the comments how it was. Yeah, so for this, I hope I could explain you what a tea ceremony actually is and also explain you how much it costs, where to go. If you still have questions, just write down in the comments. And yeah, as always, thank you for listening. Have a great day. また今度よろしくね。